Hello, my name is Lexi King, and I will be talking about innovation in child welfare. So, a little brief history on child welfare. It was created in 1935, and it was when the federal government decided to give grants to families and children in need of help. Now, as far as the innovation and the culture of child welfare, things started to move and change slowly. Before 1978, Native American and Indian children were stripped away from their homes and placed in more colonized or Americanized homes and areas, and they lost a lot of sight of their history. So 1978 comes around and ICWA is passed. ICWA stands for the Indian Child Welfare Act. And this act pretty much protects the children in those Native American families and on those tribes, and allows for them to have a little bit more freedom as far as where they are placed. They are made sure to be placed with other Native American families. They are made sure to be placed on different tribes, and also if a family identifies themselves as Native American and we do the background check and it turns out that they are Native American, the tribe usually takes over the child welfare case. So that happened in 1978. What I am proposing and bringing to the table is that we do the same thing for Black and African American children. The African American children overwhelm the child welfare system. And that is because those areas, those underdeveloped areas and areas that people might call the hood or the projects, those are the areas where people report the most, and it's school officials and other people who don't necessarily live within those areas. They report child abuse and neglect the most. So the foster care system is very much so overwhelmed with children of African American descent. My proposal is that we create kinship relationships and make it a thing. One thing about the African American culture is that we might have families, and I say we because I am a part of that culture, that family members who are not technically considered our family members, but they're more of a family than our actual family might be. So still, these children, if they're in abusive and neglectful situations, absolutely should be taken away if there's no reconciliation that can happen within the home. But not always should they be placed with a family that is not who they know, or a family member that they have no idea who it is. Sometimes the auntie down the street, who is mom's best friend, might be the better fit for the child than the grandmother, the maternal or paternal grandmother. A way for us to do this is by creating a centralized organizational structure so that the focal point can be those children in those areas. And it doesn't stop with African American children. It expands to Hispanic children, Hispanic and Latino children. It expands to Caucasian children. It's just that with African American children, they overwhelm the system, and that would be the next step after we solve the issue for the ICWA children, the Native American children. I think our focus should now be turned towards the African American children so that we can properly support them and place them where they need to be. So with the centralized organizational structure, all policy and everything will be focused on keeping children with family and people who are like family, instead of placing them in a foster care system where they might not have a home to be placed in and they end up in a group home, whereas they could have stayed down the street in a familiar area and stayed in the same school district with the same friends, where their life is not so uprooted. They are already taken from their moms and their dads. They're taken from their homes, their beds. Some of them move in with foster parents, and they sleep on a couch or they sleep on the floor, create a little pallet on the floor. Why not place these children with people who they are familiar with at least? That establishes permanency, and it establishes a sense of comfort for these children. So, in the child welfare system, the goal would be to encourage and engage and foster this culture of innovation and coming up with different ways to change policy and to speak for the children who can't speak for themselves. And the way to do that is to allow social work specialists to just do their jobs and do what they went to school for. As a social worker, we learned so much about these families, and there's all these statistics and different things that are shocking to us. It's like, why isn't anybody doing anything to change it? Well, the social workers that are going out in the field and that are getting their hands dirty and that are seeing these families every single day and having to take these children from the home and place them with complete strangers, they have ideas and ways to navigate the way that this kinship relationship and adding it into policy, how it should work. Another way to keep culture and keep fostering this culture of innovation, is to encourage the team and encourage them. We, as social workers, we go out into the fields and we see some very traumatic and detrimental things, and it's a lot to handle, and with our hands tied behind our back because policy states one thing when we know what's best for the children in a different way, it becomes discouraging. So encouraging the staff, the social workers, the case managers to spend time creating ideas and changing policy and changing the way things are would foster that culture of innovation. It'll push the social workers to do more, to do greater, to do bigger things, and to feel like their job is actually making a true difference. Child welfare, child protective services, for example, is viewed as legalized kidnappers. It's something that I've heard on the field from my clients. You guys are just legalized kidnappers, and that's not the goal. That's not who we are. That's not what we would like to happen. However, when children are placed in a neglectful or abusive situation, we do have to act based off of policy. Well, the policy gave us wiggle room on where to place these children. Not that they should have been removed or taken away in the worst of the worst situations, but if they gave us wiggle room of where to place these children, we could at least give them what they need, and at least change the numbers and change the system of the foster care system. And then we wouldn't have all of these children and teenagers and even young children. Babies are the ones that are most sought after at the moment. So the middle school age children and the high school age children, the ones who are about to age out of the system, they have nowhere to go. But they might have had family members who are not technically their family living down the road. So that is what I am proposing, and that's something that I want to get started and hopefully move into a department analyst position to create this culture of innovation and to drive this kinship, this fictive kin relationship, and drive it into policy. Thank you.